everybody, and thanks for joining Stamp with Tracy for today's Well Wednesday. Today I am going to work with a stamp set that's called Peace to You. And this is in the current mini catalog, the July to December mini catalog that has most of our holiday stamps in it. And I was watching a YouTube video by Ann Hellman, Scrappy Stampin', and she was showing 9 different ways of using this stamp set. Now, you don't have to have this particular stamp set. What works very well with this is when you have a stamp that has a large solid background. And these 2 stamps do have that. They fall into that category. So it's a great way to show you some of these techniques she was sharing. Now, I'm not going to show you all 9 that she did, but there were 2 of them that I really fell in love with, and I wanted to share those with you. Now, to do this the best, it's fantastic to have our Stamparatus. If you do not have our Stamparatus, after seeing this tonight, you're probably going to want to order one. The Stamparatus is an absolutely wonderful tool to have that helps us with stamping. We can ink up our stamp, and if it's not quite what we needed, it stays in the same place. We just ink it up again and restamp over and over until you make sure that you get the look that you want. So our Stamparatus comes with 2 plates, and tonight I'm just using the one right here, but it's a hinge Stamparatus. So if you can see this here, the plates are removable. They come out, and one of the really cool things that you can do when they call it step stamping is that you can have your stamp on here and move down one and come down, and you can step on down all the way down the card, or if you're up here, all the way across the card. So that's just one of the many little things that you can do with the Stamparatus. Now, the Stamparatus comes with this mat on the inside, 2 magnets. Now, this mat is what is used, and you can see the bottom plate is has inches on it. So it's a fantastic little mat. I know it's hard to see the numbers, but we have it going all the way down the side and also the bottom, which I know is out of your screen. Now, this cushioned mat here is best to use when you're using photopolymer stamps. You want to have that placed in here, and what it does is it lifts it a little bit, so when you bring the plate over and you press down, there's not as much space as there is with our red rubber, so you get a good inked up stamp to paper ratio. Now, I personally leave it in for everything. I think it makes stamping everything easier. So even though I'm using the red rubber stamp, I still leave that mat in there. I like the way it gives me for all of my stamping. Okay, so we're going to be using 3x5. And I know I just had those here, and I just don't know what happened to them. 3x5, and I'm sorry, 3 3/4 by 5 white cardstock. And I am going to come in here, and I put it right up in the corner. And that way, each time I stamp, I know it's up in the corner if it does happen to move a little bit, but with our magnets, it shouldn't do that. Now, these are very, very strong magnets, and you do not want to get them close to each other. They'll pinch your fingers, they'll snap, they come together with such force they'll break. There is a storage space on the bottom of the Stamparatus to store them. So I wrapped a little bit of washi tape around because sometimes they're so hard to pick up. So I have them down, and they will be holding my paper in place. And again, you don't want to get them close together because they will snap together and they will break. So now that I have that there, the next thing that I do is I take and I place my stamp side down, the ink side down, label up where I want it on my cardstock. And then I bring my plate over, press down gently, and pick that up. Now it is stuck to my Stamparatus plate. I also like to always have I just use the stamp set that I'm using. So I place the stamp set over to the right so that when I open this up, I'm on a flat surface. And when I'm inking, I don't get inconsistency, because if I didn't have that stamp set underneath of me, then this would be moving up and down. So for the first technique that I want to show you, I'm stamping with multiple colors. And I'm going to start with my lightest color. The three colors I'm using is Orchid Oasis. The next one is Starry Sky. And both of those are 2224 in colors. And then my third color is Night of Navy. So when you're doing this technique, you always want to start with your lightest color. So I am going to ink up my entire stamp with the Orchid Oasis. I'm just tapping. And I will move that ink aside. And then come over and you press firmly down all around the stamp area. Pick it up. And if I didn't like the way that looked and I needed to re-ink it, the paper won't move, the stamp won't move, it's all in the same place. I would just re-ink it and go over top of it again. Like right here, this is a little bit light. At the bottom of Mary right here is just a little bit light. But with the technique I'm showing you tonight, that doesn't matter, so there's no need for me to restamp it. I am not going to clean my stamp in between either. So I'm coming in with my next color, which is Starry Sky, and I am going to come up approximately 3/4 up the stamp. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a dauber, and I'm just going to take that dauber and soften the edges where the end of my ink is. So that way you won't see that specific line. And I'm going to come over and press down nice and firm. And then you can see right there the two different tones I have. My daubers are very old. It looks like that the sponge is falling apart a little bit and coming off one here. Really old. They're probably close to 20 years old. Then my next and last color is Night of Navy. Again, I am not cleaning off my stamp. And I am coming about 1/4 of the way up with the Night of Navy. And again, I'm going to take the dauber, and again, I'm just going to soften where that color stopped and bring that over, press nice and firm. And then we have the real dark at the bottom. I know it's very hard to see on the camera here, but it's gradiated from very dark, and then lighter color in the sky. And I just love the way that looks. I think that's absolutely gorgeous. Now the finished card, I cut this down. I trimmed it down a little bit because I decided that I wanted to have the Orchid Oasis cardstock behind it. So I think after the fact, I trimmed it down to 3.5 by 4 3/4. And then my Orchid Oasis cardstock is 5 1/4 by 4, and that's layered onto the thick Whisper White. So that's the first card that I wanted to show you. And also, when I use my Stamparatus, I always use my chamois. If you don't have a chamois, it is in the section of our catalog where there are stamping tools, and it comes in a full 5x7 piece. I cut it down. You wet it and then wring out the excess water, and I store it in one of our stamp cases, and I usually rinse it out really good when I'm done, wring out most of the water, and then just put it back in here. And if I'm not going to use it for a long time, I will leave it open and let it dry. It gets really hard, and then you just wet it and get it soft again and reuse it over and over and over again. It doesn't matter how ugly and messed up it gets with ink. It stains, but it's just fine the way it is. That it doesn't take color off of anything. the color, you know, once it's on the chamois, doesn't come off on anything else. So I'm going to just go ahead and clean that, and we're going to move on to the next technique I wanted to show you. Now with this technique, we are actually going to take the daubers and use that to go right onto the stamp. And this time I'm going to be using Mary Merlot, Soft Suede, and Starry Sky again. So I'm going to start with the Mary Merlot. And again, I'm using a piece of 3 3/4 by 5. And my magnets to hold that in place. And I made sure that I was up in the corner here so that I know that my paper, if it does happen to shift, it's in the corner, and I know I can just place it right back in the corner. So I'm going to start off with Mary Merlot, and I'm going to ink up Mary with dabbing on the Mary Merlot. And I'm going to be doing Baby Jesus as well. And I'm going a little bit around the outside of Mary to give a little shadow there. And I bring it over and I press nice and firm. And again, if I need to fix it, I just come back and I can re-ink and fix it again. So there we have that. It looks great. Now this time I am cleaning in between. So I'm going to get my ink off of there. Go right back and tap that dry a little bit. And now I'm going to move on to the soft suede color. And that will be for Joseph. Okay. So now I'm going to do the same thing. And I'm just going to dab around him. And again, this color is soft suede. And I am coming outside a little bit to give him a shadow as well. And I'm going to come back in with my chamois. I got just a little bit on Mary there. It really doesn't matter, but I am going to wipe it off. And then I'm going to bring that over and press down for Joseph. I love the way that turned out. Clean it off again. Dry it. Now I'm going to be using the Starry Sky. And this time I'm going to be doing all the outside. Just going to try and stay off the inside of Joseph and the inside of Mary. Okay, now I'm going to bring that over and again press down on that. Nice and firm. And I want it to be a little bit darker. So I am going to go ahead and bring in some more ink. And I'm going to ink up real good around the outside. And that's one of the things I was saying about using the Stamparatus. We can come back and make adjustments however we want. And we ink that up again. And there we have it, much better. Maybe just a little bit in here. Come back over with that. Fill that in great. I just love using my Stamparatus because I can come back over it as much as I want and add a little bit more color. So I think that looks fantastic. So there's your multicolor by using your daubers right on the stamp. And I'll show you the finished card with that one. I did a Mary Merlot around that. So I trimmed this down. And on the Whisper, on the basic white, I made that 3 by 4. And then 1/4 of an inch bigger. So that's 3 1/4 by 4 1/4. And then I stamped a strip, Christmas to Peace to You at Christmas. And did the same thing. I did that on white and then layered it on a piece of Mary Merlot. And put that on the Orchid Oasis card base. So there are 2 really awesome techniques. Like I said, you don't have to have this stamp set for it to work, but a more solid stamp set, line art, it wouldn't work as well. But I absolutely love that, and I hope you did enjoy that little bit of teaching for a different way to ink up your stamps. So the Stamparatus, as I said to you earlier, does have a place to store your magnets on the back so that they don't stay together. And as I stated, it does come with 2 plates, and it comes with this mat. And you can buy some papers and stuff to go with it. You can have the pieces of paper that are the 7 by 7 that fit right in there. And you can, you stamp off to the side on them and work things out and then just dispose of them. They're just pieces of paper. But let me show you a few more cards that I made with this. Another one of the techniques that she shared with on her video. She had, I think my phone moved. Sorry about that. My recording. Stamped on designer series paper. Now this designer series paper is in the annual catalog. I'm pretty sure it's the annual catalog. I should have looked at that to make sure. But it's called Texture Chick. And it is beautiful designer series paper. Absolutely gorgeous. Let's see if I can show you some of it here. So you have this, and it has this gold in the background. And then here's some other colors. Again, with those gold foil strips in the background. And the back side of that's gorgeous. And again, this is called Textured Chick. This one here with some snowflakes on the back. Some flowers on that one. This is the piece I used on the card I'm showing you right now on the back side of that. And then the last one is some polka dots. And there's seashells on the back of that. Gorgeous, gorgeous colors. So the colors in this Texture Chick is Evening Evergreen, Mango Melody, Petal Pink, Pool Party, Soft Succulent, and Soft Suede. And again, that is our 12 by 12 designer series paper. So I stamped with Evening Evergreen right on top of that designer series paper. And I could ink up and go back over it again using the Stamparatus to get it just as dark as I wanted. And then I stamped May God's Hope and Love Shine on You this season. I layered that onto a piece of Evening Evergreen and then did that on the heavy thick basic white cardstock. And then there was another one that was done with gold foil. Now, when you're stamping on foil paper, I recommend using the Stays-On ink. And the Stays-On ink will dry permanent. Our regular dye ink will not dry on this foil paper. It can't be absorbed into it. So since it's not a porous paper, you need to use the Stays-On. But I stamped that in black, and I just stamped it over and over again to get it as dark as I wanted, and stamped it onto the gold paper, put a layer of the basic black behind it, another layer of our gold foil, and again I put that on a white thick card base. I think I would, now that I look at this, would have liked it better on a black card base, and then I would have just put a white panel on the inside. And then the other stamp that's in here is this beautiful scenery. It doesn't have to be Christmas, it's just a winter scene really, with trees and a little church. But I did see another card that Laura Secchi, I think is how you pronounce her name. Again, another demonstrator I saw online. And I used the rectangle dies. Now, the stitched rectangle dies, actually, I didn't have one this size, and I only wanted the trees. So I did have to move that. And I hope you understand what I mean. So I cut it out, and then I laid the die back on it again and moved it over to make it even smaller, and cut out 3 pieces. The center one's just a little bit smaller to give it a little offset, but I love the way that that turned out. Again, I stamped Peace to You at Christmas, and this was from the Stylish Shape Dies. That is a stamp set that's in the current annual catalog that I absolutely love. Die set that I absolutely love. So this was just another idea to use that. There are so many ways to use this stamp set. I think it's absolutely gorgeous, and I hope you like it too. I hope it encourages you to maybe purchase this for your Christmas cards this year. And here is my August host code. Feel free to shop at TraceyTrott.stampinup.net. Use the August host code if your order is under $150. Don't forget, we are still in celebration, so for every $50 that you spend, you can get a free gift in our celebration catalog. You have till the end of the month to do that. And always on Well Wednesdays, make sure that you both like and comment to have a chance to win 2 cards from tonight's video. I hope you enjoyed tonight's video, and I hope you really loved this Peace to You stamp set. This is like a little sleeper set in there that doesn't get a whole lot of attention, and I absolutely loved it, so I knew I was going to be using it, and I wanted to share it with you. So don't forget to both like and comment for tonight's Well Wednesday, and thanks for joining me, everyone. Happy stamping!